The snow had been falling for 18 hours straight, blanketing the small town of Cedar Falls, Wyoming in 3 feet of white silence. Roads were impassable, power lines were down in half the county, and the temperature had dropped to 15 below zero before wind chill. Marcus Webb stood at the window of his cabin, watching the storm with the practiced eye of someone who'd survived much worse conditions. At 42, he'd been a Navy SEAL for 20 years before retiring and moving to this isolated corner of Wyoming. He'd wanted quiet. He'd wanted peace. He'd wanted to be left alone with his memories and his dog. Beside him, his Belgian Malinois Ghost whined softly, not his usual alert but something different, something urgent. "What is it, boy?" Marcus asked, his hand automatically going to Ghost's head. The dog moved to the door, his body tense, his attention locked on something outside that Marcus couldn't see. Marcus had learned over 7 years of partnership, 5 in combat, 2 in retirement, to trust Ghost's instincts absolutely. If the dog said something was wrong, something was wrong. He pulled on his heavy winter gear, grabbed his emergency pack, and opened the door. Ghost bounded out immediately, plunging into the deep snow, heading east toward the old country road that ran past Marcus's property. Marcus followed, his headlamp cutting through the driving snow, his breath forming clouds in the frigid air. Ghost was 50 yards ahead, moving with purpose, occasionally stopping to make sure Marcus was following. They'd gone maybe a quarter mile when Ghost stopped abruptly and began digging at a snowdrift beside the road. Marcus pushed through the last few yards and saw what Ghost had found. A car, a sedan, maybe 15 years old, was buried in the snow, nose down in the ditch. The engine was off, the windows already partially covered, and inside, barely visible through the frosted glass, were 2 figures. Marcus's training kicked in instantly. He pulled open the driver's side door. It took effort. The snow had piled against it, and assessed the situation. An elderly man sat in the driver's seat, unconscious or sleeping, his skin pale and waxy. Beside him, an elderly woman was conscious but clearly hypothermic, her lips blue, her movements sluggish. "Ma'am, I'm here to help," Marcus said, his voice calm and professional. "Can you hear me?" The woman's eyes focused on him slowly. "My husband, Henry, he won't wake up." "I'm going to get you both out of here. Stay with me, ma'am. What's your name?" Margaret Patterson. "We were trying to get home from town, but the storm, we got stuck, and the car died," and her voice trailed off, her words slurring. Marcus checked Henry's pulse, weak but present. Both were severely hypothermic, probably had been in this car for hours. They needed warmth immediately, or they weren't going to survive. "Ghost home," Marcus commanded. The dog immediately turned and started back toward the cabin, breaking trail through the snow. Marcus pulled Henry from the driver's seat. The old man weighed maybe 160 pounds, his body limp and cold. Marcus lifted him in a fireman's carry, adjusting the weight with practiced ease. "Can you walk?" he asked Margaret. I don't know." "You're going to try. Hold on to my jacket. Don't let go no matter what. We're going to my cabin. It's warm there. You're going to be okay." The walk back was brutal. Henry's weight, the deep snow, Margaret's stumbling attempts to keep pace. Every step was a battle. But Marcus had carried wounded teammates through worse terrain under enemy fire. He could carry 2 elderly civilians a quarter mile in a blizzard. 20 minutes later, they reached the cabin. Marcus got them inside, Ghost already waiting by the door, and immediately began treating for severe hypothermia. He laid Henry on the floor near the wood stove, wrapped him in blankets, started warming him gradually. Margaret he settled in a chair, wrapping her in dry blankets, giving her warm, not hot, water to sip. "Your husband's in bad shape," Marcus said as he worked. "His core temperature is dangerously low. I need to warm him slowly, monitor him constantly. Do you have any medical conditions I should know about?" He has a heart condition, takes medication for it, and I have diabetes." Margaret's voice was stronger now, warming, bringing clarity. "Are we going to die?" "Not if I can help it." Marcus pulled out his satellite phone. Regular cell service was out, and tried to call for medical help. Nothing. The storm was interfering with the signal. He was on his own. For the next 6 hours, Marcus worked without stopping. He monitored Henry's vital signs, adjusted warming blankets, provided fluids to combat dehydration. He checked Margaret's blood sugar, dangerously low, and gave her food to bring it back up. Ghost lay between them, his body providing additional warmth, his presence somehow comforting to the frightened couple. Around midnight, Henry's eyes fluttered open. Where am I?" "You're safe, sir. You're in my cabin. You and your wife got stuck in the storm. I'm Marcus Webb. This is Ghost. We found you and brought you here." Henry tried to sit up, but Marcus gently pressed him back down. "Easy. You've been severely hypothermic. You need to stay still, let your body recover." "Margaret, is she?" "I'm here, Henry." Margaret's voice came from the chair. "This man saved us, both of us." Henry's eyes filled with tears. I thought we were going to die in that car. I couldn't get us home, couldn't keep you safe." "You did keep me safe. You kept the car running as long as you could, kept us both warm. And then this man and his dog found us." Margaret looked at Marcus with profound gratitude. "Thank you. I don't know how you found us in that storm, but thank you." "Thank Ghost. He's the one who alerted me. He knew someone needed help." Henry looked at the Malinois, his expression odd. "He's a military dog. Retired. We served together in Afghanistan. He saved my life more times than I can count. Tonight he saved yours." Over the next few hours, as the storm gradually weakened, Marcus kept monitoring his patients. Henry's condition stabilized. His temperature came back to normal. His heart rate steadied. Margaret's blood sugar normalized, and color returned to her face. By dawn, when the storm finally broke and weak sunlight filtered through the windows, both were sitting up, drinking coffee, and looking remarkably recovered, considering they'd been hours from death 12 hours earlier. "I don't know how to thank you," Henry said, his voice thick with emotion. "You risked your life to save us. Went out in that storm when any sane person would have stayed inside. Couldn't leave you out there, not when Ghost alerted me. He knew you needed help. Still, most people would have called 911 and waited for professionals. 911 wasn't an option. Phone lines were down, emergency services couldn't get through, and by the time they could, it would have been too late." Marcus's voice was matter-of-fact. "Besides, I had the training and the equipment. Made sense for me to go." Margaret studied Marcus with sharp, intelligent eyes. "You're military. The way you move, the way you assess situations, the way you treated our hypothermia, that's not civilian knowledge." "Navy, 20 years. Got out 2 years ago." "SEAL?" Henry asked. Marcus nodded. "Figured only SEALs are crazy enough to go out in a blizzard for strangers." Henry smiled slightly. "Thank you for your service, and thank you for our lives." When the roads finally cleared late that afternoon, Marcus drove the Pattersons home in his truck. Their car would need to be towed out of the ditch and probably wouldn't run anyway. Ghost rode in the back seat, keeping watch over the couple he'd saved. The Patterson home was a large Victorian on the edge of town. Beautiful, well-maintained. Clearly the home of people who'd built a good life over many years. "Come in," Margaret insisted as Marcus helped Henry out of the truck. "Please. The least we can do is offer you dinner, conversation, proper thanks." "I should get back." "Please," Henry said. "We owe you our lives. Let us thank you properly." Marcus hesitated, then nodded. He wasn't good with social situations anymore, wasn't comfortable with gratitude and attention. But these people had nearly died, and if accepting their hospitality helped them process the trauma, he could endure an hour or two of conversation. Inside, the house was warm and filled with the accumulated treasures of a long life together. Photos on every wall, children, grandchildren, decades of birthdays and holidays and ordinary moments made precious by time, books lining the shelves, comfortable furniture arranged for conversation. It was the kind of home Marcus had never had, never thought he wanted. But seeing what a lifetime of partnership and dedication could build, something twisted in his chest. "You have a beautiful home," he said. 53 years in this house," Margaret said proudly. "Raised 4 children here, watched 12 grandchildren grow up here. This house, it's our life." Henry settled into his chair with a grunt. "Which we almost lost last night. If you hadn't found us," his voice broke, "our children would have been planning funerals instead of celebrating Christmas next week." "But they're not. You're both fine. That's what matters." Margaret disappeared into the kitchen, returning with coffee and cookies. "Tell us about yourself, Marcus. What brings a Navy SEAL to Cedar Falls?" Marcus took a cookie to be polite, though he wasn't hungry. Wanted quiet, wanted to be somewhere that loud. "Combat?" Henry asked gently. "Yeah, 20 years of it. After a while, the noise gets to be too much. The chaos, the violence, Marcus stopped, not sure how to explain to civilians what it was like to spend 2 decades in the world's worst places. I needed quiet." "Understandable. I was Army back in Vietnam. Wasn't special operations, just regular infantry. But I remember what it was like to come home to a world that felt too soft, too easy, too disconnected from everything I'd experienced." Henry's voice carried understanding. "Took me years to adjust, to build a life that felt meaningful after all that." "How did you do it?" "Margaret," Henry reached for his wife's hand. "She gave me a reason to heal, to build something good, to believe that life could be about more than survival." Margaret smiled, squeezing her husband's hand. "And he gave me strength, taught me what real courage looks like, showed our children what it means to serve something larger than yourself." They talked for hours, about Henry's service, about Marcus's deployments, about the struggle to find purpose after leaving the military. The Pattersons were easy to talk to, genuinely interested, not pushing for details Marcus couldn't share. And Ghost had settled at Margaret's feet, his head on her lap, allowing her to pet him with the patient tolerance of a dog who recognized someone who needed comfort. "He's wonderful," Margaret said, scratching behind Ghost's ears. "So calm, so intelligent. You can see the training in every movement. He's my best friend, saved my life more times than I can count. When I got out, I adopted him. Couldn't imagine life without him." "That's how I feel about Henry." Margaret's voice was soft. 60 years together. Can't imagine a day without him. Last night when he wouldn't wake up when I thought," she stopped, tears sliding down her face. "You gave me more time with him, however much we have left, whether it's a year or 10 years, you gave us that. There's no way to thank you enough for that gift." Marcus felt his throat tighten. "You don't need to thank me, I did what needed doing." "That's what heroes always say," Henry observed. "But doing what needs doing when it's hard, when it's dangerous, when you could easily justify not getting involved, that's the definition of heroism, son." As the sun set and Marcus prepared to leave, Henry walked him to the door. "Marcus, I want you to know something. You're not alone here. In Cedar Falls, I mean. We may be a small town, but we take care of our own. And after tonight, you're one of ours. Anything you need, anything at all, you call us. Understand?" "I appreciate that, sir, but I'm fine. I don't need." "Everyone needs community. Everyone needs people who give a damn whether they're okay." Henry's voice was firm. "You spent 20 years taking care of others. Let others take care of you for a change." Marcus didn't know how to respond to that, so he just nodded and left, Ghost at his side. As they drove back to the cabin through the cleared roads, past the spot where the Pattersons' car had been buried, Marcus tried to process what had happened. He'd come to Cedar Falls to be alone, To avoid people, to avoid connection, to avoid the messy complexity of civilian life. He'd built walls around himself, convinced that isolation was safer than vulnerability. But tonight those walls had cracked slightly. Because helping the Pattersons hadn't just saved their lives. It had reminded Marcus of something he'd forgotten in his 2 years of self-imposed exile. He was still capable of making a difference, still capable of using his skills for something that mattered, still capable of connecting with people who understood sacrifice and service. "What do you think, Ghost?" Marcus asked the dog. "Did we make a mistake letting them in?" Ghost's tail wagged, his answer clear. "No, not a mistake, the right choice." Marcus hoped the dog was right. The story of the rescue spread through Cedar Falls faster than the snowplows could clear the roads. By the next morning, everyone in town knew that Marcus Webb, the reclusive ex-SEAL who lived alone in the woods, had saved Henry and Margaret Patterson from certain death. Marcus discovered this when he went into town for supplies 2 days later. People stopped him on the street to thank him, to shake his hand, to tell him he was a hero. The woman at the hardware store refused to let him pay for his purchases. The guy at the gas station filled Ghost's water bowl and slipped him treats. It was overwhelming and uncomfortable, and made Marcus want to retreat back to his cabin and never come out. But then he ran into Doc Reynolds, the town's only doctor, a man in his 70s who'd been practicing medicine in Cedar Falls for 40 years. "Marcus," Doc said, his voice warm, "heard what you did for Henry and Margaret. That was good work, medical training in the SEALs. Enough to keep teammates alive until real medics arrived. Well, you saved those two. Another hour in that cold and they'd both be dead. Henry's heart wouldn't have taken it." Doc paused. "You did something I want to talk to you about if you have a minute." Marcus followed Doc to his office, a small clinic on Main Street, clearly underfunded but immaculately maintained. "Coffee?" Doc offered. "Sure." They sat in Doc's office, surrounded by medical texts and patient files. Ghost settled at Marcus's feet, accepting Doc's absent-minded ear scratches. "Here's the thing," Doc said. "I'm 73 years old. I've been practicing medicine in this town since before you were born, and I'm tired. My hands shake, my vision's not what it was, and I'm starting to forget things I've known for 50 years. I'm sorry to hear that." "Don't be, it's just age, but it creates a problem for Cedar Falls. I'm the only doctor for 50 miles. When I retire, which needs to happen soon, this town will have no medical care. People will have to drive an hour each way for basic treatment. And in emergencies, in storms like the one we just had, people will die." Marcus wasn't sure where this was going. The town's been trying to recruit a doctor for 3 years. No takers. Young doctors don't want to work in isolated rural areas for small-town pay, and older doctors don't want to relocate to the middle of nowhere. So we're stuck. "That's tough." "It is, but here's what I'm thinking. You have medical training. You have crisis management experience. You're calm under pressure and clearly competent. Have you ever thought about becoming a physician assistant or a paramedic?" Marcus blinked. "No, never." "Why not? You clearly have the skills. With your military experience, you could get certified relatively quickly. And Cedar Falls desperately needs someone like you, someone who won't panic in emergencies, who can make tough calls, who gives a damn about helping people." I don't have the education. I dropped out of college to join the Navy." "You have 20 years of real-world experience. That counts for more than a degree in my book, and there are accelerated programs for veterans, ways to get certified without spending years in school." Doc leaned forward. "I'm not saying you have to. I'm just saying think about it. This town could use you, and maybe you could use a purpose beyond hiding in the woods with your dog." The words hit harder than Marcus expected. "I'm not hiding." "Aren't you? Son, I've seen a lot of combat veterans come through this town over the years, and I know the signs of someone trying to outrun their memories. You're not the first SEAL who thought isolation would heal wounds that connection actually needs. You don't know anything about my wounds. You're right, I don't, but I know you risked your life to save two strangers in a blizzard. I know you spent hours caring for them with skill and compassion, and I know that someone with your abilities is wasting himself living alone in the woods. Doc's voice was gentle but firm. Just think about it. That's all I'm asking. Marcus left the clinic feeling unsettled. He'd come to Cedar Falls to escape expectations, to avoid responsibility for anything beyond his own survival. And now this old doctor was suggesting he take on more, help more people, commit to a community, build something beyond isolation. It was exactly what Marcus had been avoiding. But as he drove back to his cabin, Ghost in the passenger seat, he couldn't stop thinking about Doc's words. Someone with your abilities is wasting himself living alone in the woods. Was that true? Was he wasting himself? For 2 years, Marcus had convinced himself that retirement meant disconnection, that he'd given enough, served enough, sacrificed enough, that he'd earned the right to be left alone. But saving Henry and Margaret, that had felt good, purposeful, like maybe his skills still mattered, like maybe he could still make a difference. The thought was terrifying and compelling in equal measure. 3 days later, Margaret Patterson called him. "Marcus, it's Margaret. I hope you don't mind me calling. Henry got your number from Doc Reynolds." "It's fine. How are you both doing?" "We're well, fully recovered thanks to you. But that's not why I'm calling. I wanted to invite you to dinner. Christmas Eve here at our house. Our children and grandchildren will be here and we'd like you to meet them. We've told them all about how you saved us and they'd like to thank you in person." Marcus's instinct was to refuse. He didn't do family gatherings, didn't do crowds or socializing or situations where people would treat him like a hero. But something in Margaret's voice, hope maybe or genuine warmth, made him pause. "I appreciate the invitation, but I don't want to intrude on your family time." "You wouldn't be intruding. You'd be honoring us by joining us. Please, Marcus, let us show our gratitude properly. And," Margaret's voice grew softer, "let us include you in our family for one evening. Everyone deserves to be part of something during the holidays, even stubborn ex-SEALs who pretend they don't need anyone." Marcus almost smiled despite himself. "You're persistent." "I'm a mother and grandmother. Persistence is my superpower. So is feeding people. Say you'll come. Ghost is invited too, of course." Marcus looked at Ghost, who was watching him with those intelligent eyes. The dog's tail wagged once, as if casting a vote. "Okay," Marcus heard himself say, "we'll come." "Wonderful, 6 o'clock on Christmas Eve. And Marcus, thank you for saving us, for agreeing to come, for giving an old woman hope that you're not as isolated as you pretend to be." Christmas Eve arrived cold and clear. Marcus dressed in the only nice clothes he owned, jeans without holes, a button-down shirt, boots that weren't covered in mud. He felt ridiculous, like he was playing dress-up, pretending to be someone who belonged at family gatherings. But Ghost seemed excited, his tail wagging as they drove into town, and Marcus figured if the dog thought this was a good idea, maybe it was. The Patterson house was ablaze with lights and filled with people when Marcus arrived. He stood on the porch for a full minute, his hand raised to knock, fighting the urge to flee. Then the door opened and Margaret stood there, her face lighting up. "Marcus, you came, come in, come in. Everyone's eager to meet you." Inside was chaos, children running, adults laughing, the smell of food and pine, and the general warmth of family. Marcus felt overwhelmed immediately, but Margaret guided him through introductions with gentle efficiency. "This is our daughter Susan and her husband Tom. This is our son Robert and his wife Jennifer, our youngest Michael with his partner David. And this is Emily and Sarah. They're our eldest son's daughters up from Colorado." Everyone greeted Marcus with genuine warmth, thanking him profusely for saving their grandparents, asking about his service, making him feel simultaneously valued and uncomfortable. Then Emily, maybe 25, with kind eyes and an easy smile, knelt beside Ghost. "Hey there, gorgeous. You must be Ghost. Your dad told us you're the real hero who found our grandparents." Ghost's tail wagged, and he allowed Emily to pet him, which was unusual. Ghost didn't usually warm up to strangers that quickly. "He likes you," Marcus observed. "I'm good with dogs, work at an animal shelter in Denver. Military working dogs are incredible, the training, the intelligence, the bond with their handlers." Emily looked up at Marcus. "Thank you for saving my grandparents. They're everything to our family if we'd lost them." Her voice caught. "Thank you." Dinner was loud and chaotic and nothing like what Marcus was used to. But it was also nice. The food was incredible, the conversation flowing easily, people including Marcus without making him the center of attention. Henry told stories about his army days. Robert talked about his work as a teacher. Margaret made everyone laugh with tales of raising 4 children in small-town Wyoming. And Marcus found himself relaxing, participating, even enjoying himself. After dinner, as people were settling in the living room, Henry pulled Marcus aside. "Walk with me, I want to show you something." They went to Henry's study, a small room lined with bookshelves and filled with the memorabilia of a well-lived life. Henry pulled out a wooden box from his desk drawer. "These are my medals. Bronze Star, Purple Heart, some others. Got them in Vietnam, but I never wore them much. Felt, I don't know, like bragging maybe, or like the medals couldn't capture what those moments really cost." Marcus nodded, understanding completely. "But I wanted to show them to you because I've been thinking about something since the night you saved us, about legacy, about what we leave behind." Henry opened the box, looking at the medals. "I thought my legacy was these medals, this house, my family, and that's all true, but now I'm realizing the biggest part of my legacy is the time I got because of you. I just did what needed doing." "Stop saying that." Henry's voice was firm. "You keep minimizing what you did like it doesn't matter, but it does matter. You gave Margaret and me more time together. You gave our children more years with their parents. You gave our grandchildren more memories with their grandparents. That's everything, Marcus. That's the most valuable gift anyone's ever given our family." Marcus felt his throat tighten. "And I want you to know you're part of this family now. Not because you saved us, but because we choose to include you. Because you deserve to be part of something good. Because isolation isn't healing, son. Community is." "I don't know how to do community. Haven't been good at it since I got out." "None of us are good at it at first. We all stumble, make mistakes, feel awkward. But that's okay. That's part of being human." Henry put the medals back in the box. "Promise me something. Promise me you'll think about Doc's offer, about staying in Cedar Falls, about building a life here, about using your skills to help this community that's ready to embrace you." "I don't know if I can." "You can. I've seen your courage. Courage in a blizzard is impressive, but courage to stay, to connect, to build, that's even more impressive, and I think you have it." They returned to the living room, where carols were being sung and presents were being exchanged. Margaret pressed a wrapped package into Marcus's hands. "We got you something, open it." Inside was a handmade quilt, beautiful, intricate, clearly hours of work. "I made it," Margaret said. "Been working on it all week. Each patch represents something, your service, your courage, your kindness. It's our way of saying thank you and also our way of saying you're part of our community now. You're not alone anymore, Marcus. Not unless you choose to be." Marcus stared at the quilt, his vision blurring. He hadn't cried since before his last deployment. But looking at this gift, at the faces of this family who decided he mattered, he felt something break inside him. "Thank you," he managed. This is incredible. I don't deserve." "Yes, you do. Emily's voice was gentle. "You deserve kindness and community and people who appreciate you. We all do, even stubborn ex-SEALs who think they should handle everything alone." Marcus left the Patterson house late that night, the quilt in his truck, Ghost at his side, his heart fuller than it had been in 2 years. And as he drove through the quiet streets of Cedar Falls, past houses lit with Christmas lights, past the clinic where Doc Reynolds probably still worked late, past the lives being lived by people he was starting to care about, Marcus made a decision. He'd think about Doc's offer, about training as a PA, about staying in Cedar Falls and building something beyond isolation. Because maybe, just maybe, the Pattersons were right. Maybe he wasn't meant to hide in the woods forever. Maybe he was meant to keep serving, just in a different way. Maybe showing up for this community was exactly what he needed to heal. After the holidays, Marcus found himself making more trips into town, not because he needed supplies, but because people kept inviting him places. Coffee with Doc Reynolds to discuss PA programs, dinner with the Pattersons and their extended family, a meeting with the town council about emergency preparedness, even a casual beer with some local veterans at the VFW hall. Cedar Falls was pulling him in, and Marcus was surprised to find he wasn't entirely resistant. "You're socializing," he said to Ghost one morning as they hiked through the snowy woods. "That's new for us." Ghost's tail wagged agreement. But the decision about becoming a physician assistant wasn't simple. It would mean commitment to education, to this town, to a future that involved connection and responsibility. All the things Marcus had been avoiding. He was still wrestling with it when Doc Reynolds called in early February. "Marcus, I need your help. We've got a situation." "What kind of situation?" "Ice storm hit last night. Power's out across half the county, roads are a nightmare, and I just got a call from the Thompson family out on Route 9. Their son, 8 years old, fell on the ice and broke his arm, bones through the skin. They can't get to the hospital and I can't get to them. Ambulance is dealing with a multi-car pileup on the highway." Marcus was already grabbing his coat. "What do you need me to do?" "Get out there, assess the injury, stabilize if you can. I'll walk you through treatment over the phone. You've got field medical training, this is right in your wheelhouse." "On my way." The drive to the Thompson place took 40 minutes on roads that should have taken 15. Ice coated everything, making every turn treacherous. But Marcus had driven through worse, IED-laden roads in Afghanistan, mountain passes in Syria. Ice in Wyoming was manageable. The Thompson house was a small ranch on the edge of a farm. Marcus pulled up to find a panicked family, parents in their 30s, a terrified 8-year-old boy, and 2 younger children who were crying in sympathy. "Are you the doctor?" Mrs. Thompson asked desperately. "I'm not a doctor, but I have combat medical training. Doc Reynolds sent me. Can I see your son?" The boy Tyler was on the couch, his arm bent at an unnatural angle, bone visible through the torn skin. An open fracture, severe but manageable if treated correctly. Marcus knelt beside him, his voice calm. "Hey Tyler, I'm Marcus, this is Ghost. We're going to help you, okay? Your arm hurts pretty bad, right?" Tyler nodded, tears streaming down his face. "I know it does, but I'm going to fix it, make it better. You're going to be okay." Marcus pulled out his emergency medical kit, something he'd maintained from his SEAL days, always kept stocked just in case. He called Doc Reynolds, put him on speaker, and followed the doctor's instructions precisely. Cleaned the wound, stabilized the bone, administered pain medication from his kit, set up an IV to combat shock and dehydration. Tyler was crying but brave, his parents hovering but trusting Marcus's competence. "You're doing great, buddy," Marcus said as he worked. "You're really brave, you know that. Most kids would be screaming, but you're holding still, letting me help you. That takes real courage." Are you a soldier?" Tyler asked through tears. I was Navy SEAL, retired now. Did you help soldiers who got hurt? Sometimes, and now I'm helping you. Same thing, really. Making sure good people get the care they need. 2 hours later, Tyler was stable, arm set properly, wound cleaned and bandaged, pain managed. The roads had cleared enough that an ambulance could get through to transport him to the hospital for follow-up care. As the paramedics loaded Tyler, Mrs. Thompson grabbed Marcus's hand. You saved him. If you hadn't come, if Doc hadn't sent you, I don't know what we would have done. Thank you so much. Marcus drove back to town through the melting ice, Ghost beside him, his hands still steady despite the adrenaline wearing off. And he realized something. He'd missed this. Missed the urgency, the purpose, the knowledge that his skills made a tangible difference. Missed being needed. He went directly to Doc Reynolds' clinic. Heard it went well, Doc said, looking up from patient files. Tyler's going to be fine. You did good work. Felt good, felt right. Marcus sat down, Ghost settling at his feet. Tell me about this PA program, the one for veterans. Doc's face split into a wide smile. Thought you'd never ask. Over the next hour, Doc laid out the details. There was an accelerated physician assistant program specifically designed for military medics and corpsmen. 18 months of intensive training, heavy focus on rural medicine and emergency care. Scholarships available for veterans. And Doc had already reached out to the program director. They were very interested in someone with Marcus's background. If you start in the fall, you'd be done by the following January. And Cedar Falls would have a PA, someone young enough to serve this community for decades, someone who understands emergency medicine and isn't afraid of hard cases. Doc leaned forward. I'll be honest with you, Marcus. This town needs you, and I think you need this town. You need purpose beyond survival. You need to be part of something. I came here to get away from responsibility. And you've had 2 years to heal. But isolation isn't healing anymore, it's stagnation. You're ready for the next phase, I can see it. Marcus looked at Ghost, who was watching him with those intelligent eyes. The dog had saved Henry and Margaret, had alerted Marcus to people in need, had known what Marcus needed before Marcus knew it himself. What do you think, boy? Marcus asked. Should we stay? Ghost's tail thumped against the floor, a clear yes. Okay, Marcus said to Doc. I'll apply. No promises that I'll get accepted, but I'll try. You'll get accepted, and you'll be brilliant at it, mark my words. The application process was intense. Marcus had to document his military medical training, provide references from former commanders, write essays about why he wanted to become a PA. It forced him to articulate things he'd been avoiding, his desire to help people, his need for purpose, his recognition that isolation wasn't the answer to his struggles. He also had to get cleared by a VA therapist to ensure his PTSD was managed well enough for him to handle medical training and patient care. The therapy sessions were hard. Marcus had spent 2 years avoiding his demons, convincing himself he was fine. Confronting them directly, talking about the teammates he'd lost, the civilians he'd failed to save, the weight of decisions that had led to death, reopened wounds he'd thought were healed. But his therapist, Dr. Sarah Martinez, was patient and skilled. PTSD doesn't mean you're broken, she said in one session. It means you experience things that would break most people, and your brain is processing them the best way it knows how. But you can learn better processing tools. You can learn to carry the weight without letting it crush you. How? By building a life worth living, by connecting with people who understand, by serving in ways that give you purpose without re-traumatizing you, by forgiving yourself for being human. That last one was the hardest. Marcus carried so much guilt for the teammates who died, for the missions that went wrong, for the decisions that haunted him. Forgiving himself felt like betraying the people he'd lost. They wouldn't want you to suffer, Dr. Martinez said gently. The teammates you lost, They'd want you to live fully, to use the second chance you got. They'd want you to honor their sacrifice by building something good. Marcus wasn't sure he believed that, but he wanted to try. In May, the acceptance letter arrived. Marcus had been admitted to the PA program with a full scholarship for veterans. He'd start in September. He called the Pattersons to tell them. Margaret cried. Henry said he was proud. They insisted on hosting a celebration dinner. At the dinner, surrounded by the Patterson family and half the town, word had spread quickly. Marcus felt overwhelmed by the support. "You're really doing this?" Emily asked. She'd driven up from Denver for the occasion, committing to Cedar Falls to this community. Apparently, still not sure how it happened. "It happened because you're a good man who's finally letting people see that, and because this town is full of people who recognize value when they see it." Emily smiled. "I'm glad you're staying. We need more people like you." After dinner, Henry pulled Marcus aside again. This seemed to be their ritual now, these private conversations where Henry shared the wisdom of his 78 years. "You know what impresses me most about you," Henry said. "What?" "Your courage, and I don't mean the combat stuff that's a given for a SEAL. I mean the courage to change, to admit that isolation wasn't working, to accept help and connection and community. That takes real bravery, Marcus, more than most people have." "Doesn't feel brave, feels scary." "That's because it is scary. Building a life is always scarier than surviving, but it's also infinitely more rewarding." Henry paused. "You gave Margaret and me more time together. Now I'm watching you build something, a future, a purpose, a reason to stay. That makes what you did for us even more meaningful. You didn't just save our lives, you saved your own." Marcus felt tears prick his eyes. "I'm not sure I'm doing this right." "Nobody's sure. We all stumble through, make mistakes, hope we're heading in the right direction. But you're trying, that's what matters. You're showing up, Marcus, for this town, for yourself, for the future you're building. That's everything." That summer, Marcus prepared for PA school. He volunteered at Doc's clinic, shadowing the old doctor, learning the rhythms of rural medicine. He attended town council meetings, contributing ideas about emergency preparedness. He trained Ghost in search and rescue techniques, preparing the dog to potentially help in future emergencies. And slowly, gradually, he built connections, friendships with other veterans in town, a mentorship with Tyler Thompson, the boy whose arm he'd set, who now followed Marcus around like a puppy whenever his family visited town. Even a tentative relationship with Emily Patterson, who'd started making more trips to Cedar Falls on weekends, ostensibly to visit her grandparents but really to spend time with a certain ex-SEAL and his dog. "You're different than you were 6 months ago," Emily observed one evening as they hiked with Ghost. "Lighter, more present." "This place changed me. These people, your grandparents, Doc, this whole community, they wouldn't let me hide, wouldn't let me pretend isolation was healthy." "Good, because you're too valuable to waste. This town needs you." And Emily's voice grew soft. "I'm starting to think I might need you too." Marcus looked at her, this woman who worked with rescue animals, who understood service and sacrifice, who decided he was worth knowing. I'm not good at relationships. My ex-wife can attest to that." "Maybe you weren't good at that relationship because you were trying to be someone you weren't. But here you're just you, and that's pretty great." September arrived and Marcus started PA school. The program was intense, 12-hour days of classes and clinical rotations, studying late into the night, pushing himself academically in ways he hadn't since before joining the Navy. But he loved it, loved learning the science behind the instinctive medical care he'd provided in combat, loved the clinical rotations where he got to work with patients, loved knowing that every class, every rotation, every skill he mastered would help him serve Cedar Falls better. His classmates were mostly younger, fresh out of college, idealistic about medicine. But there were a few other veterans, and they bonded quickly over shared experiences and understanding. "Why rural medicine?" one classmate asked during a study session. "Because rural communities need help. Because small towns like Cedar Falls deserve quality medical care. And because," Marcus paused, searching for words, "because serving this community feels right. Feels like what I'm supposed to be doing with the skills and experience I have." Christmas arrived again, his second in Cedar Falls, but his first as a true member of the community. The Pattersons invited him to their family celebration again, and this time Marcus brought Emily as his date. Margaret's eyes sparkled with knowing amusement. "I see romance is blooming." "Grand, stop embarrassing them," Emily laughed. "I'm old. I've earned the right to meddle in my grandchildren's love lives. And Marcus is perfect for you. He's kind, he's dedicated, he's got a wonderful dog. What more could you want?" The evening was warm and chaotic and perfect. And when Henry toasted Marcus, to the man who saved our lives and then decided to save this whole community, Marcus felt something settle in his chest. This was home. These were his people. This was the life he was meant to build. 18 months after starting PA school, Marcus graduated at the top of his class. The Pattersons, Emily, Doc Reynolds, and half of Cedar Falls attended the ceremony. Ghost, wearing a bow tie for the occasion, received almost as many congratulations as Marcus. "Knew you could do it," Doc said, shaking Marcus's hand. "Now comes the real work, actually treating patients." Marcus returned to Cedar Falls as a licensed physician assistant, partnering with Doc Reynolds at the clinic. The plan was for them to work together for a year, giving Marcus time to establish himself and giving Doc time to gradually retire. "You're not getting rid of me entirely," Doc warned. "I'll still be around, interfering, offering unsolicited advice. That's my prerogative as the old doctor who refuses to fully retire." "Wouldn't have it any other way," Marcus replied honestly. Word spread quickly that Cedar Falls had a PA. Patients who'd been putting off medical care because the drive to the nearest hospital was too far started scheduling appointments. Parents brought their children. Elderly residents came in for checkups, and Marcus handled it all with the calm competence that had served him in combat. But he also brought something unexpected to rural medicine: genuine care. He spent time with patients, listening to their concerns, understanding their lives. He made house calls when patients couldn't come to the clinic. He worked late when emergencies arose. "You're going to burn out," Doc warned after Marcus worked his fifth 16-hour day in a row. "I'm fine." "You're not fine. You're trying to save everyone, trying to make up for." Doc stopped, realizing he'd touched a nerve. "For what?" Marcus's voice was tight. "For the people you couldn't save in combat. But Marcus, you're not in combat anymore. You don't have to run yourself into the ground trying to save every single person who walks through that door. You're allowed to have boundaries, to have a life beyond work." "This is my life." "No, this is work. Life is what happens when you're not at the clinic. Life is Emily and Ghost and the home you're building. Don't sacrifice that on the altar of trying to prove you're worthy." The words hit hard because they were true. Marcus had thrown himself into medicine with the same intensity he'd brought to special operations. All or nothing. No half measures, success or failure, with nothing in between. Emily noticed too. "You're working too much," she said one evening when Marcus canceled their dinner plans for the third time that week because of a patient emergency. Someone needed help. Someone always needs help, but you can't help anyone if you collapse from exhaustion. Emily's voice was gentle but firm. "I understand dedication. I work with rescue animals. I get the impulse to save everything. But you have to pace yourself, Marcus. You have to take care of yourself so you can keep taking care of others." "I'm fine." "Stop saying that. You're not fine. You're running yourself ragged because you think that's what good doctors do. But good doctors also know their limits. They know when to rest, when to ask for help, when to trust that other people can handle things. Marcus wanted to argue, but he was too tired. And Emily was right. He was burning out, running on empty, trying to prove something that didn't need proving. "I don't know how to do balance," he admitted. "In the Navy, it was all or nothing. You gave everything, every minute of every day. There was no such thing as enough. You just kept going until the mission was complete." But this isn't the Navy, and medicine isn't a mission with a clear endpoint. It's a marathon, not a sprint. You have to pace yourself. Emily took his hands. "Let me help you. Let Doc help you. Let this community share the load instead of trying to carry it all yourself." Marcus took her advice. He started setting boundaries. No more than 10 hours a day at the clinic except in true emergencies. 1 full day off per week. Regular sessions with his VA therapist to process the stress and maintain his mental health. And slowly he found a rhythm. The practice stabilized. Patients adjusted to his schedule. And Marcus discovered that being a physician assistant in a small town was exactly what he needed. Meaningful work without the life-or-death pressure of combat, connection without overwhelming demands, purpose without self-destruction. 6 months into his practice, something unexpected happened. Marcus was closing up the clinic late one evening when a car pulled up. A young woman got out, visibly pregnant and in distress. "Please, I need help. I'm in labor and I can't make it to the hospital." Marcus got her inside, assessed the situation quickly. She was in active labor, dilating rapidly, and the nearest hospital was 45 minutes away. She wasn't going to make it. "Okay," Marcus said, his voice calm despite his racing pulse. He delivered bobbies in combat zones, Afghan villages with no electricity, Syrian refugee camps with minimal supplies. He could do this. "What's your name?" Jennifer Walsh. "This is my first baby. I wasn't due for another 2 weeks, but..." "Bobbies have their own schedules. We're going to get through this together, Jennifer. I've delivered bobbies before. You're in good hands." Over the next 3 hours, Marcus delivered Jennifer's baby, a healthy girl who came into the world screaming her indignation at being rushed. Jennifer cried. Marcus breathed a sigh of relief, and Ghost, who'd been lying quietly in the corner, wagged his tail in approval. "You saved us," Jennifer said as Marcus cleaned up the baby and checked her vitals. "I was so scared. I thought something terrible was going to happen." "You did great, and your daughter is perfect." Marcus wrapped the baby in blankets and handed her to Jennifer. "Welcome to Cedar Falls, little one." The story spread through town by morning. Marcus Webb, the ex-SEAL PA, had delivered a baby in his clinic. By noon, people were calling him a hero again. By evening, Jennifer's husband had shown up with flowers and tears and profound gratitude. "You gave me my family," he said. "I can never thank you enough." Doc Reynolds found Marcus at the clinic the next day, a knowing smile on his face. "Delivered a baby, huh? Wasn't planning on it, but yeah. How'd it feel?" Marcus considered the question. "Terrifying, exhilarating, right." He paused. "In combat, I saw death constantly. Watched people die despite everything we did to save them. But last night I helped bring life into the world. That's a different kind of meaningful." "That's why I became a doctor," Doc said. "Not to fight death, but to celebrate life. To help people at their most vulnerable moments. To be present when miracles happen." He clasped Marcus's shoulder. "You're not just a good PA, Marcus. You're the kind of medical professional this town has been waiting decades for. I'm proud of you." A year after Marcus started practicing, Doc Reynolds officially retired. The clinic was now entirely Marcus's responsibility, and it was thriving. Patient numbers had doubled. The clinic had expanded hours, and Marcus had hired an assistant, a young woman named Lisa who'd grown up in Cedar Falls and wanted to serve her community. The town held a retirement party for Doc at the community center. Everyone came. The Pattersons, Emily, veterans from the VFW, patients Doc had treated for 40 years, and Marcus gave a toast that made the old doctor cry. Doc didn't just teach me medicine. He taught me what it means to serve a community with dedication and love. He showed me that being a good medical professional isn't just about skills. It's about caring, about showing up, about treating every patient like they matter. He gave this town 4 decades of service, and he gave me a chance when I needed one. I'll spend the rest of my career trying to live up to his example. After the party, Marcus and Emily walked through town, Ghost padding beside them, the Montana spring air sweet with possibility. "You've built something incredible here," Emily said. "In just 2 years, you've gone from isolated veteran to pillar of this community. That's remarkable, Marcus. Couldn't have done it without help, without the Pattersons, without Doc, without you pushing me to connect instead of hiding. You did the hard work. You made the choice to stay, to serve, to build." Emily stopped walking, turning to face him. "And I want to be part of what you're building, not just visiting on weekends, but really part of it. Living here, working here, building a life with you." Marcus's heart stopped. "You'd leave Denver for this, for you?" "Yeah, I've been thinking about it for months. I could transfer to the animal shelter in the county, work with rescue animals here, be with you, be part of this community that's embraced you so completely." Emily smiled. "That is, if you want me to." "I want you to, God, I want you to." Marcus pulled her close. "I never thought I'd have this. A home, a purpose, someone who understands why I need both. You've given me everything. You've given yourself everything. I just helped you see it was possible." They kissed as the sun set over Cedar Falls, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Ghost barked once, as if in approval, and Marcus felt something he hadn't felt since before his last deployment. Complete, total, perfect peace. 3 years after saving Henry and Margaret Patterson in a blizzard, Marcus stood in the same spot where he'd found their car buried in snow. But now it was summer, the road clear and warm, wildflowers blooming along the shoulder. Emily stood beside him, Ghost at their feet. They'd been married for 6 months, a small ceremony at the Patterson house, with half the town in attendance. Emily had transferred to Cedar Falls, was working at the county animal shelter, and they'd bought a house on the edge of town with enough land for Ghost and the 3 rescue dogs they'd accumulated. "This is where it all started," Marcus said, looking at the ditch where the car had been. "Where Ghost found them, where everything changed. Do you ever regret it? Coming out in that storm, saving them, getting pulled into this community?" "Never, not once." Marcus pulled Emily close. "That storm brought me back to life, reminded me that I had value beyond combat, that I could still make a difference, that isolation wasn't the answer to my struggles. The Pattersons talk about you like your family." "They are family. This whole town is family now," Marcus smiled. "Funny how that works. I came here to be alone, and I ended up finding exactly the opposite: connection, purpose, belonging. All the things I thought I didn't need." Emily rested her head on his shoulder. "You saved them that night, but they saved you too. That's how community works. We all save each other." They stood there for a long moment, Ghost sitting contentedly at their feet, the Montana summer surrounding them with warmth and life and possibility. And Marcus thought about the journey that had brought him here, from combat to isolation to connection, from survival to living, from merely existing to building something meaningful. It had started with a storm and a dog's alert, and 2 elderly people who needed help. But it had become so much more. A life worth living, a community worth serving, a love worth celebrating. "Come on," Emily said, taking his hand. "We should get home. You've got patients tomorrow, and I promised the shelter I'd help with that new litter of puppies." "Work, work, work," Marcus teased. "Says the man who works 60 hours a week healing people." "Fair point." They walked back to their truck, Ghost trotting ahead, leading the way home. And as they drove through Cedar Falls, past the clinic where Marcus saved lives, past the Pattersons' house where family gathered, Past the VFW hall where veterans supported each other, Marcus felt gratitude wash over him. For the storm that had changed everything. For the dog who'd known what Marcus needed before Marcus knew it himself. For the community that had refused to let him hide. For the woman beside him, who'd chosen to build a life in this small town, with a former SEAL who'd finally learned what it meant to truly come home. This was his life now. Not combat, not isolation, but service and connection and love. And it was perfect. 5 years after that night in the blizzard, Cedar Falls was thriving. The clinic had expanded again, now employing 2 more PAs and a full nursing staff. Marcus had established a rural medicine training program, bringing medical students from the state university to learn how to serve underserved communities. The town council had recognized Marcus's contributions by naming the expanded clinic the Marcus Webb Community Health Center, despite his protests. "You saved this town's medical care," Mayor Patricia Chen had said at the dedication ceremony. "You took a chance on us when you could have gone anywhere. We're honoring that commitment." But for Marcus, the real measure of success wasn't in buildings or recognition. It was in the lives touched, the emergencies handled, the community served. Like the Thompson boy, Tyler, who decided to become a paramedic after Marcus set his broken arm years ago. Tyler was now studying at the community college, volunteering at the clinic, following in Marcus's footsteps. Like the veteran support group Marcus had started, which met weekly at the VFW hall. 20 local veterans now gathered regularly to talk about their struggles, support each other, and remind themselves they weren't alone. Like the search and rescue team Marcus had trained with Ghost's help. 5 local dogs and their handlers now provided emergency support across the county, finding lost hikers and missing children. Small impacts that added up to something meaningful. Henry and Margaret Patterson, now in their 80s, were still active and vibrant. They credited Marcus with giving them years they wouldn't have had otherwise, years to watch grandchildren graduate college, get married, start families of their own. "You gave us time," Margaret said at a dinner celebrating their 60th wedding anniversary, "and we've used every precious minute of it." On a spring morning, Marcus was at the clinic when he got a call from the county sheriff. "Marcus, we've got a situation. Wildfire in the hills west of town. We're evacuating residents, but there's an elderly couple, the Hendersons, who are refusing to leave. They're in their 80s, have health issues, and if the fire shifts, they're in danger. Can you help?" Marcus was already grabbing his emergency kit. "On my way. Send me the coordinates." He took Lisa with him. She'd proven herself capable in emergencies, and Ghost, whose presence always seemed to calm frightened people. The drive into the hills was tense, smoke already visible on the horizon, the smell of burning pine thick in the air. The Henderson house was an old ranch, isolated and surrounded by forest. Perfect for privacy, terrible for fire safety. Marcus pulled up to find the couple on their porch, watching the smoke, stubborn expressions on their weathered faces. "Mr. and Mrs. Henderson, I'm Marcus Webb, PA from the Cedar Falls Clinic. Sheriff asked me to check on you, help you evacuate." "We're not leaving," Mr. Henderson said firmly. "This is our home, been here 52 years, we'll take our chances." Marcus recognized that stubborn independence, had seen it in combat, in veterans who refused help, in people who'd rather die than admit they needed support. He also recognized the fear underneath it. "I understand. This is your home. You've built a life here. Leaving feels like giving up." Marcus's voice was gentle, but the fire's unpredictable. If the wind shifts, this house could be surrounded in minutes, and I'm guessing you both have health issues that would make surviving in a fire situation impossible. Mrs. Henderson looked at her husband, uncertainty in her eyes. "Harold." "We're staying, Martha." Marcus tried a different approach. "Can I at least check your vitals? Make sure you're healthy enough to stay if that's your choice. As a medical professional, I can't leave without knowing you're okay." Harold grudgingly agreed. Marcus examined them both. Harold had severe COPD. Martha was recovering from a stroke. Neither was in condition to survive smoke inhalation or the stress of a fire emergency. "Here's the situation," Marcus said honestly. "With Harold's lung condition, the smoke alone could kill him. And Martha, your mobility issues mean you couldn't evacuate quickly if the fire got close. I'm not trying to scare you. I'm trying to help you understand the risk." "We understand the risk," Harold said. "We just don't want to leave our home." "I get that, but what if you came to my house for a few days, just until the fire's contained? My place is in town, safe from the fire. You could stay in the guest room, bring anything you need. I'd check on you medically, make sure you're both okay. And when the fire's out, I'll drive you back here personally." Marcus saw them wavering. "Ghost can come too," he added, gesturing to the Malinois who was sitting patiently by the truck. "He's good company, and he's trained in search and rescue, so you'd have extra protection." "You'd do that?" Martha asked. "Take in 2 stubborn old people you don't even know?" "Ma'am, I've taken in plenty of stubborn people over the years. You'd be in good company," Marcus smiled. "And I became a PA to help this community. That includes making sure you both survive this fire, even if you don't want to evacuate to the official shelter." The Hendersons agreed grudgingly. Marcus and Lisa helped them pack essential belongings, medications, photos they couldn't bear to lose. Ghost supervised, his calm presence reassuring the frightened couple. As they drove back to town, smoke thick in the air, Martha reached forward from the back seat to touch Marcus's shoulder. "Thank you for not giving up on us, for understanding that leaving our home isn't easy." "I understand completely, and I promise when it's safe I'll get you back home." The Hendersons stayed with Marcus and Emily for a week, until the fire was contained and their property was confirmed safe. During that time, Marcus provided daily medical care, monitored Harold's breathing, helped Martha with her physical therapy. Emily cooked meals, Ghost provided comfort, and the couple slowly relaxed. "You've built something special here," Harold observed one evening. "This house, this marriage, this life of service, that's what matters. Not money or status or recognition, just building something good." "Learned that from people like you and the Pattersons," Marcus replied. "People who showed me that community and connection matter more than isolation." When Marcus drove the Hendersons home, their house was still standing, untouched by the fire that had burned through the surrounding forest. Harold cried when he saw it, and Martha squeezed Marcus's hand. "You saved our home by getting us to safety. If we'd stayed, if we'd panicked in the smoke, we might have made mistakes that cost us everything. You saved yourselves by trusting me. That's not easy, trusting a stranger during a crisis. But you did, and that made all the difference." News of Marcus's work during the fire spread. Other residents reached out, thanking him for his service, for his dedication to protecting even the most stubborn members of the community. And the town council decided to do something special. 6 months later, on the anniversary of the night Marcus had saved the Pattersons, the entire town gathered at the community center for a surprise ceremony. Marcus had been told it was just a routine town meeting. Instead, he walked in to find the place packed. The Pattersons, the Hendersons, the Thompsons, Doc Reynolds, every patient he'd ever treated, every veteran from his support group. Mayor Chen stepped to the podium. Marcus Webb came to Cedar Falls 6 years ago looking for isolation. Instead, he found a community that needed him. And he didn't just meet that need, he exceeded it in every way. She pulled out a proclamation. "By the authority vested in me as mayor of Cedar Falls, Wyoming, I hereby declare December 21st as Marcus Webb Day, a day to celebrate service, compassion, and the profound impact one person can have when they choose to show up for their community." The crowd erupted in applause. Marcus stood frozen, overwhelmed, Ghost pressing against his leg in support. "We're also establishing the Marcus Webb Scholarship," Mayor Chen continued, "for students from Cedar Falls who want to pursue careers in medicine or emergency services, because you've inspired a generation to follow your example, to serve, to care, to make a difference." Tyler Thompson stepped forward, now 18 and about to start paramedic training. "Mr. Webb saved my life when I was 8, and he's been my mentor ever since, showing me what it means to serve with dedication and compassion. I'm going into emergency medicine because of him, and I know I'm not the only one." 3 other students stepped forward, all planning careers in healthcare, all citing Marcus as their inspiration. Henry Patterson approached the podium, moving slowly but steadily, Margaret at his side. "6 years ago, this man saved our lives in a blizzard, but he did more than that. He reminded this entire town what it means to take care of each other. He showed us that one person choosing to help, choosing to stay, choosing to serve, that can change everything." "We're not perfect," Margaret added. "We're a small town with all the usual problems, but we're better because Marcus is part of us. We're healthier, we're more connected, we're more committed to taking care of each other. That's his legacy." Emily stepped forward, tears streaming down her face. "And he's given me the greatest gift, a life built around service and love, a partnership where we both get to do work that matters, a home filled with rescue dogs and purpose and joy." She turned to Marcus. "You came here broken, convinced you had nothing left to give, but you gave everything, and in doing so you built something beautiful, not just for this town but for yourself. I'm so proud of you." The ceremony continued with testimonials, stories, expressions of gratitude. Marcus stood through it all, Ghost at his side, completely overwhelmed by the outpouring of love. When it was his turn to speak, he approached the podium with shaking hands. "I don't know what to say. I came to Cedar Falls to hide, to avoid people, to avoid responsibility, to avoid the pain of connecting. And this community, you all wouldn't let me. You pulled me out of isolation. You showed me that my life still had value. You gave me a reason to keep going when I wasn't sure I wanted to." He looked at the Pattersons. "Henry and Margaret, you started this. By accepting my help, by including me in your family, by refusing to let me stay isolated. That night in the blizzard changed both our lives." Then at Doc Reynolds. "Doc, you saw potential in me when I couldn't see it in myself. You pushed me to become a PA, to serve this community in ways I never imagined. You gave me purpose." At Emily. "And you gave me love. You showed me that being damaged doesn't make me unworthy, that I could build a life beyond survival, that I deserved happiness." His voice broke. "So thank you, all of you, for not giving up on me, for showing me what community means, for letting me serve you the way you've served me. This is more than I ever thought I'd have." Ghost barked once, as if in agreement, and the crowd laughed through their tears. The party went late into the night. People shared stories, laughed, celebrated, and Marcus finally understood what he'd been searching for all along. Not isolation but belonging. Not survival but purpose. Not hiding from the past, but building toward the future. 10 years after that night in the blizzard, Marcus stood on his porch at sunrise, Ghost beside him. The old dog was graying now, moving slower but still alert and present. They watched the sun paint the Montana sky in shades of orange and pink. Emily emerged from the house, carrying their 6-month-old daughter, Hope. "Morning, you're up early." "Couldn't sleep, thinking about anniversaries, about how much has changed." 10 years since you saved the Pattersons. Has it really been that long?" "Feels like yesterday and a lifetime ago." Marcus took Hope, holding his daughter carefully. She'd been born 3 months early, a medical emergency that Marcus and his team had handled with practiced competence. Now she was thriving, healthy and perfect. "Your dad used to be a SEAL," Marcus told his daughter. "Thought his service was done. But then a snowstorm hit and a dog alerted to people in trouble and everything changed. That dog, he gestured to Ghost, he saved me. Gave me a reason to reconnect, to serve, to live. Ghost's tail wagged weakly. And now we're here. In this town your dad loves, doing work that matters, surrounded by people who have become family. That's everything, Hope. That's what life should be. Emily rested her head on Marcus's shoulder. The Pattersons want to come by today. Bring the whole extended family. Celebrate the anniversary. Of course they do, Marcus smiled. Henry and Margaret never miss a chance to meddle in my life. They love you, we all do. The day was filled with celebration. The Patterson family descending on Marcus and Emily's house, bringing food and laughter and chaos. Henry, now 88, moved with a walker but still had his sharp mind and warmer heart. Margaret, at 85, was as vibrant as ever. 10 years, Henry said, settling into a chair on the porch while the younger generation played in the yard. We've lived 10 years we wouldn't have had if Ghost hadn't found us, if you hadn't come out in that storm. Best decision I ever made, Marcus replied. Best decision we made was including you in our family, refusing to let you hide, pushing you to stay, to connect, to build. Henry looked at Hope, sleeping in Emily's arms. Now look at you, married, father, pillar of this community. That's what I hoped for you, what I knew you could have if you just gave yourself permission. You gave me permission, you and Margaret and this whole town. Margaret joined them, settling beside her husband with practiced ease. We didn't give you anything you didn't already have. We just showed you it was there. The courage, the compassion, the capacity to build something meaningful, that was always in you. Maybe, but I couldn't see it alone. That's why community matters, Henry said. None of us can see ourselves clearly. We need others to reflect back our value, our worth, our potential. That's what we did for you, and what you've done for countless others in this town. As the sun set and the party wound down, Marcus found himself alone on the porch with Ghost. The old dog rested his head on Marcus's lap, tired but content. You saved me, boy, Marcus said softly. That night in the blizzard you knew people needed help, knew I needed to help them, knew that showing up for them would save me too. Ghost's tail thumped weakly against the porch. I'm going to lose you soon. I can see it, the gray in your fur, the stiffness in your joints, the way you sleep more than you used to. And that's going to hurt, because you've been my partner through everything. Combat, retirement, building this new life. The dog looked up at Marcus with those wise, knowing eyes. But I'm going to be okay, because of what you taught me, that showing up matters, that service doesn't end, that connection heals. That building a life worth living is the bravest thing we can do. Marcus scratched behind Ghost's ears, the familiar gesture comforting them both. Thank you, buddy, for everything, for finding the Pattersons, for showing me the way home, for being the best partner I could have asked for. They sat together as the stars emerged, man and dog, partners who'd saved each other in ways that went beyond any single moment. And Marcus understood, finally and completely, what his legacy would be. Not the missions he'd completed as a SEAL, not the patients he'd treated as a PA, but the community he'd served, the connections he'd built, the lives he'd touched by choosing, every single day, to show up, to care, to give a damn about people who needed help. That was the real heroism. Not in the dramatic rescues, but in the daily decision to be present, to be useful, to be someone others could count on. Ghost had shown him that in a blizzard 10 years ago. And Marcus had spent every day since proving that lesson learned. The end,